In this episode, we're going to focus on a problem that trips up even careful organizations: how to protect data when it lives in cloud storage and SaaS workflows, where sharing is easy and connections are everywhere. Beginners often think data security is mostly about keeping outsiders out, but in cloud and SaaS environments, data loss and exposure frequently happen through legitimate pathways. A file gets shared broadly, a link is made public, an integration is granted too much access, or a sync tool copies sensitive content into the wrong place. None of those require a dramatic hack. They happen because cloud platforms are designed for speed and collaboration, and convenience can quietly outrun control if you are not intentional. The goal here is to learn how to keep strong governance over your data while still allowing normal work to happen. We will focus on what makes cloud and SaaS data different, what typical exposure patterns look like, and what practical guardrails keep you in control. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Start by recognizing that cloud storage and SaaS are not just new locations for old files. They change how data moves. In traditional environments, a sensitive document might live on a file server accessible only inside the network. In cloud and SaaS, the same document might be accessible from any device with the right login, and it might be shareable with a link in seconds. Data can also be copied, synced, or embedded into multiple services through integrations. That means the boundary of where the data lives becomes fuzzy. The organization's control shifts from physical location to identity, permissions, and workflow rules. This is why shared responsibility and identity hardening matters so much here. When the perimeter is less central, the controls that decide who can access, share, and export data become the primary protection. One of the most important beginner lessons is to distinguish between access and sharing. Access is who can reach the data inside the platform, based on permissions and authentication. Sharing is how the data is distributed beyond its original boundaries, often through links, external guests, or file transfers. A file might be protected by strong authentication, yet still end up exposed if someone shares it publicly or invites external accounts without proper oversight. Many cloud storage systems make sharing easy by design because collaboration is a core feature. That means security must adapt. Instead of treating sharing as an exception, you treat it as a normal operation that requires policy and visibility. If you do not manage sharing intentionally, you are effectively leaving your most sensitive assets at the mercy of individual decisions made under time pressure. Public exposure is a classic cloud storage risk, and it can happen in more ways than beginners expect. Sometimes it is obvious, like making a file publicly accessible. Other times it is indirect, like setting a folder permission that cascades down, unintentionally granting access to many more people than intended. It can also happen through external guest access, where a user invites someone outside the organization to collaborate. Guest access can be extremely useful for business, but it also expands the trust boundary. If you allow external guests, you need guardrails for who can invite them, how they authenticate, and how long access lasts. Time limits, approval requirements, and restricted sharing scopes can reduce risk. The goal is not to block collaboration. The goal is to make risky sharing deliberate, visible, and limited. Another exposure pattern is uncontrolled copying and syncing. Many platforms support syncing files to local devices so people can work offline or quickly access content. This convenience can become a data risk if sensitive files are synced onto unmanaged devices or personal accounts. It can also create multiple copies of the same data across locations, making it harder to ensure that when data must be deleted or protected, every copy is addressed. In addition, syncing can blur the line between a controlled cloud repository and a device where malware or theft can occur. This is why device trust and conditional access matter. If you only allow syncing to managed, compliant devices, you reduce the chance that sensitive data spreads into unmonitored spaces. For beginners, the takeaway is that data security is not just where a file is stored. It is also where the file is replicated and who can carry it away. SaaS workflows introduce another layer of complexity because data may be transformed inside applications. For example, customer data might live in a customer relationship tool, support tickets might contain personal information, and collaboration tools might store sensitive internal discussions. SaaS platforms often support exports, reports, and integrations to other services. These features can create hidden pathways for data to leave the controlled environment. An export might download thousands of records. An integration might pull data into another platform where permissions are weaker. A reporting feature might expose sensitive fields to users who should not see them. Securing SaaS data means understanding not just storage permissions, but also workflow permissions. You ask who can export, who can share externally, who can create integrations, and who can change data retention rules. Those are access controls just as important as file permissions. Integrations deserve special attention because they often operate through tokens and service permissions rather than individual user actions. An integration might be granted broad access to read or write data, and once granted, it can continue operating in the background. If an integration token is compromised, an attacker may pull data at scale without needing to compromise a user directly. Even without a compromise, an overly broad integration can accidentally spread data into unintended systems. This is why least privilege for integrations is crucial. You want to grant only the minimum scopes required and avoid broad, all data permissions unless absolutely necessary. You also want to monitor integration activity for unusual patterns, such as sudden spikes in data access or access from unusual locations. For beginners, a good mental model is to treat integrations like permanent employees with special access. You do not give them unlimited keys, and you watch what they do. Classification and labeling are practical tools for maintaining control without constant manual intervention. Classification means identifying which data is sensitive and what kind of sensitivity it has, such as personal data, financial information, or proprietary intellectual property. Labeling can then be used to apply consistent rules. For example, data labeled as highly sensitive might have restrictions that prevent public sharing, require stronger authentication for access, and block external guest access by default. This helps because humans are not reliable at remembering policies under stress, but automated rules can enforce them consistently. Beginners often assume classification is only for compliance paperwork, but in cloud and SaaS environments, classification becomes a powerful lever for automated guardrails. It turns data protection from a user-by-user negotiation into a predictable system. Encryption is another concept beginners associate with data security, and it matters, but it must be understood correctly in cloud and SaaS. Encryption protects data from certain risks, especially if storage media is compromised, but it does not automatically prevent authorized users from sharing data improperly. If a user can access the data, they can often share it, export it, or copy it unless permissions and guardrails prevent it. Encryption is most effective when paired with strong key management and access control. If encryption keys are poorly managed or broadly accessible, encryption becomes a thin layer. If keys are strongly protected and access is tightly controlled, encryption becomes a valuable safety net. The beginner lesson is that encryption is not a substitute for governance. It is one layer in a broader control strategy that focuses on who can access and what they can do with that access. Monitoring and auditing are what allow you to keep control over time because cloud and SaaS environments are dynamic. Users join and leave teams, projects shift, and data moves. Auditing means being able to answer questions like who accessed this file, who shared it externally, who exported data, and which integrations access sensitive content. Many platforms provide audit logs, but the customer often must enable them, retain them, and actually review them. Monitoring is about watching for patterns that suggest risk, such as a large increase in external sharing, repeated export activity, or a spike in downloads from a particular account. This is where correlation helps again. A suspicious login followed by creation of a public link and then a large download is a coherent story that suggests compromise or misuse. If you only watch one signal, you may miss the story. Maintaining control also means planning for user behavior, not just attacker behavior. People share files because they need to get work done. If security policies are too rigid, people may find workarounds, like using personal email or unauthorized storage services, which can increase risk. A good approach balances protection with usability. For example, instead of banning external sharing entirely, you can allow it with guardrails like approval workflows, restricted domains, expiration dates, and strong authentication requirements for guests. Instead of blocking exports entirely, you can restrict exports for sensitive data and require justification or additional review. The goal is to create safe pathways that people can follow easily. When secure workflows are easier than insecure workarounds, control improves naturally. By the end of this lesson, you should understand that securing data in cloud storage and SaaS is primarily about controlling sharing, workflows, and integrations, not just locking down a storage location. The risks often come from legitimate features used in risky ways, like public links, broad folder permissions, external guests, exports, and overpowered integrations. Guardrails like least privilege, classification-driven policies, device and identity controls, and monitored audit trails help you preserve collaboration without losing governance. The decision rule to remember is this: whenever you evaluate a cloud or SaaS data workflow, ask how data can be shared, exported, synced, or accessed by integrations. Then ensure those pathways have clear limits, strong identity controls, and audit visibility so you can keep control even as work moves quickly.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.